What happens when five former ministry leaders come forward with explosive allegations against one of contemporary Christian music's most recognizable figures? In this video, we're examining the serious accusations made against Feucht by individuals who have worked closely with him for years. This isn't just about money, though there's plenty of that to discuss. It's about patterns of behavior that these former leaders say they can no longer stay silent about. Before we dive into the allegations, let's establish who Feucht is and why this matters. Feucht, whose legal name is John Christopher Feucht, is a worship leader, political activist, and ministry leader who has been in the public eye for several years. He's part of the Bethel Music Collective and has a business degree from Oral Roberts University. He's married to Kate, they have 4 children, and according to his website, his heart is to bring integrity, hope, and inspiration to every sphere of society. That last part is particularly significant given what we're about to discuss. Feucht gained national attention during the COVID-19 pandemic when he organized worship protest events across the country that public health officials criticized for ignoring social distancing and masking guidelines. He's also been involved in pro-Israel activism and various political causes. The key point here is that Feucht operates multiple ministries and has built a significant platform with substantial financial backing from supporters. Now, who are these 5 former leaders making these allegations? This isn't a case of disgruntled outsiders or people with minimal involvement. These are individuals who worked closely with Feucht's organizations for years. Christy Gafford served as Global Communications Director for Bern 24/7 from 2016 to 2024. That's 8 years of close involvement. Peter and Amanda Hartzell were also associated with the ministry, as were Liam Bernard, who led Bern 24/7 activities in Oklahoma City and regionally, and Richie Booth, who was part of the administrative staff for several of Feucht's ministries. These aren't people on the periphery. They were in positions where they would have had direct access to financial records, witnessed leadership decisions, and observed Feucht's behavior patterns over extended periods. Their collective decision to speak out publicly represents a significant development because of their insider knowledge and long-term involvement. To understand the scope of these allegations, we need to grasp what Bern 24/7 is. Founded by Feucht in 2006, Bern 24/7 hosts regular prayer and worship gatherings in cities around the world. Think of it as a network of continuous worship and prayer events, similar to the International House of Prayer model, but with Feucht's particular style and approach. This ministry model requires significant coordination, funding, and volunteer labor across multiple locations. It involves renting venues, organizing events, coordinating volunteers, managing donations, and maintaining operations across different cities and even countries. The scale of these operations is important because it provides context for both the financial allegations and the claims about volunteer treatment that we'll discuss. The former leaders paint a picture of long-standing behavioral problems that they say created a toxic environment. They describe what they call a pattern of moral and ethical misconduct that includes manipulation, exaggeration, control, lying, gaslighting, and what they term spiritual and emotional abuse. Let's break down what these terms mean in a ministry context. Spiritual abuse typically involves using religious authority or language to manipulate, control, or harm others. It might include claiming divine authority for personal decisions, using scripture to silence critics, or creating an environment where questioning leadership is treated as questioning God himself. Gaslighting, a term that's become more widely understood in recent years, involves making someone question their own reality or memory of events. In an organizational context, this might look like denying previous conversations, minimizing serious concerns, or making the person raising issues feel like they're the problem. The accusers claim that when Feucht was confronted about these issues over the years, it resulted in very little meaningful change or repentance. This suggests a pattern rather than isolated incidents and indicates that people tried to address these concerns internally before going public. The financial allegations are particularly detailed and concerning. The former leaders claim several specific patterns of behavior. First, they allege Feucht repeatedly used business credit cards for personal expenses. This is a serious charge because it involves using donor money intended for ministry purposes for personal benefit. They also claim he diverted donations to personal accounts, which would represent a direct misuse of funds given specifically for ministry work. Additionally, they allege he inflated prices paid to vendors. This practice, sometimes called kickback schemes, involves overcharging the organization and potentially receiving money back from vendors, essentially stealing from the ministry through inflated costs. One specific example they provide is Feucht using ministry funds to rent his own cabin in Montana for a ministry board meeting. This creates a conflict of interest where ministry money goes directly into Feucht's pocket through property rental. Liam Bernard's experience provides a personal dimension to these financial concerns. He says he was forced to cover many burn event costs out of his own pocket, which suggests either poor financial planning or intentional shifting of costs to volunteers. When Bernard raised concerns about financial transparency and accountability, he says Feucht called him names like fascist and communist, leading to Bernard's departure from the ministry. Perhaps the most eye-opening aspect of this story is the extensive real estate portfolio the accusers attribute to Feucht and Sean Feucht Ministries. Let's walk through what they've documented. A Washington, D.C. property purchased for $967,000. A $3.45 million parsonage in San Juan Capistrano, California, purchased in March 2024. 40 acres and a cabin in Montana, valued at $1.095 million. A Redding, California residence valued at $764,000 on Zillow. A Dana Point, California condominium purchased for $770,000 in April 2025. Another Montana property estimated at over $1 million on Zillow. But that's not all. They also list 7 personally owned rental properties in Pennsylvania, totaling $1.8 million in value. According to additional reporting, Feucht sold another property in Coto de Caza, California, in January for $1.7 million. When you add this up, we're talking about well over $10 million in real estate holdings. The accusers raise the crucial question: what proportion of nonprofit funds went toward real estate rather than actual program activities? This is significant because donors typically give money, expecting it to fund ministry activities like events, outreach, helping people, or spreading the gospel. If a substantial portion is instead building a personal real estate empire, that represents a fundamental breach of donor trust. The accusers point to independent verification of their financial concerns through Ministry Watch, an organization that evaluates ministry finances and transparency. Sean Feucht. Ministries currently earns an F transparency grade, receives no stars for financial efficiency, and has a donor confidence score of just 19 out of 100. Ministry Watch's withhold giving designation means their analysis suggests donors should not contribute to this ministry based on financial accountability concerns. This isn't just the opinion of the former leaders. It's the assessment of an independent organization that specializes in evaluating ministry finances. The accusers note that these ratings have declined in recent years, suggesting that financial practices have gotten worse, not better, over time. Beyond Feucht's personal conduct, the former leaders also criticized the boards of directors for his various organizations, including Burn 24/7, Light a Candle, and Let Us Worship. They claim these boards have failed to exercise proper oversight over Feucht's activities. This points to a broader governance problem. Nonprofit boards exist specifically to provide accountability, ensure proper use of funds, and protect the organization's mission. If boards aren't fulfilling these functions, it creates an environment where misconduct can flourish unchecked. The pattern the accusers describe, where people who raise concerns face retaliation, threats of litigation, and exclusion from ministry events, suggests a culture where accountability is actively discouraged rather than welcomed. The treatment of people raising concerns is particularly troubling. The accusers describe facing retaliation, threats of litigation, and exclusion from ministry events when they attempted to address problems. This kind of response to legitimate concerns creates what organizational psychologists call a climate of silence, where people become afraid to speak up about problems. It's the opposite of the transparency and accountability that should characterize Christian organizations. Richie Booth's experience illustrates this pattern. As part of the administrative staff for several ministries, he says he witnessed questionable financial practices, including unexplained use of ministry funds and being blocked from seeing credit card expense statements. When someone in an administrative role can't access basic financial information, that's a red flag for transparency. This controversy doesn't exist in a vacuum. Over the past few years, there have been multiple high-profile cases of ministry leaders facing similar allegations of financial impropriety and abuse of power. This has led to increased scrutiny of ministry finances and governance practices. The COVID-19 period, when Feucht gained significant visibility through his worship protest events, also coincided with increased donations to many ministries as people sought spiritual connection during a difficult time. This context makes the proper stewardship of those funds even more important. Additionally, Feucht's political activism and association with controversial causes means this story intersects with broader conversations about the politicization of American Christianity and the accountability of leaders who operate in both religious and political spheres. For people who have supported Feucht's ministries, either financially or through volunteer work, this presents a difficult situation. The former leaders are essentially saying they can no longer recommend supporting these ministries in any capacity, financially, through volunteer work, or through partnership. This creates both practical and spiritual dilemmas for supporters. Practically, it raises questions about where donated money actually went and whether it supported the ministries people thought they were funding. Spiritually, it challenges people to wrestle with questions about leadership accountability and how to respond when leaders fall short of expected standards. The accuser's statement is particularly strong in its language. We can no longer encourage any financial contributions to him and his endeavors. We can no longer encourage anyone to work for him, paid or unpaid. And we can no longer encourage anyone to partner with him in any ministry capacity. The former leaders are calling for an independent investigation into possible fraud and embezzlement, along with Feucht's removal from leadership and financial stewardship positions. Whether such an investigation will occur and what it might find remains to be seen. This situation highlights the importance of transparency, accountability, and proper governance in ministry organizations. It also demonstrates why independent oversight and financial accountability systems matter for maintaining donor trust and organizational integrity. For the broader Christian community, this serves as a reminder of the importance of asking hard questions about leadership accountability and financial stewardship, even when it's uncomfortable to do so. This is a developing story with serious allegations that deserve careful consideration. The detailed nature of the accusations, the credentials of the accusers, and the independent corroboration through Ministry Watch ratings suggest these aren't frivolous claims. At the same time, these are allegations, and people deserve the opportunity to respond and defend themselves. The call for an independent investigation is appropriate, given the seriousness of the charges. What's clear is that this situation raises important questions about accountability, transparency, and stewardship in Christian ministry that extend well beyond this particular case. As this story develops, it will be important to see how these allegations are addressed and what changes, if any, result from this public accountability moment. What do you think about these allegations? How should Christian communities handle situations like this? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more coverage of important stories in the Christian world.